The fluorescent lights in the pediatric ward never quite let you forget what time it is. 3 in the morning looks exactly like 3 in the afternoon. Same hum, same pale glow, same smell of antiseptic and recycled air. After 4 years on this floor, I'd stopped noticing. I'd stopped noticing a lot of things. I was charting at the nurse's station when the elevator dinged at the end of the hall. Visiting hours had been over for 6 hours. I looked up out of reflex more than anything else, expecting a worried parent or a confused post-op patient wandering in the wrong direction. It wasn't either of those things. He walked in like he owned the floor, which, I would find out later, he practically did. 2 men in suits flanked him on either side. Not hospital staff, not doctors, something else entirely. Security, maybe. Or whatever you call people who stand that close to someone and never make eye contact with anyone else in the room. He was in a charcoal overcoat, collar turned up against the November cold he'd just come in from, and he was scanning the hallway with this quiet, controlled kind of focus that made the back of my neck prickle. I knew that focus. I'd spent 3 years memorizing it. "Can I help you?" I asked, and my voice came out steadier than I felt, which was the only small mercy the universe offered me that night. He turned toward the sound of my voice, and for 1 full second, neither of us moved. 7 years. 7 years, and he still had the same way of going completely still when something surprised him, like the rest of him needed a moment to catch up to what his eyes were seeing. "Callie," he said. Not a question. Not quite a greeting, just my name, in that low, careful way he used to say it when he was choosing his words. "Mr. Hargrove," I said. "Do you have a family member admitted to this floor?" Something flickered across his face. I couldn't tell what it was, and I didn't want to try. "My father," he said. "James Hargrove. He was transferred up from the ICU this afternoon." I looked down at my chartboard before my expression could do anything I'd regret. James Hargrove. Room 412. Cardiac episode, stable but monitored. I'd done his vitals check at 11. He was a quiet man. 70s, silver hair, kept a worn photograph of a golden retriever on his bedside table, and hadn't mentioned a son once. "I'll need to see your ID," I said, "and I'll need you to keep your voice down. We have children sleeping on this floor." He didn't argue. He handed me his driver's license without a word, and I made myself look at it like I was reading it for the first time. Ethan James Hargrove. 34. Seattle address. The photo looked exactly like him, which somehow made everything worse. I handed it back. "Room 412 is down the hall on the left. I'll ask you to limit your visit to 30 minutes. It's the middle of the night, and your father needs rest." "Of course," he said. He started walking. I watched him go, and then I sat back down at the nurse's station and stared at my screen for a full 3 minutes without reading a single word. I'd been 24 when I met him. That sounds younger than it felt. I was in my 2nd year of nursing school, working weekends at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill to cover what my financial aid didn't. It was the kind of place that had mismatched furniture and too many plants and a playlist that took itself very seriously. I liked it. I liked having somewhere to be that wasn't the library or my studio apartment with the drafty window I'd covered in plastic wrap. He came in on a Sunday morning in February, just after the breakfast rush, and sat at the corner table with a laptop and the kind of quiet focus that made it clear he wasn't there to be social. I brought him his Americano and he said, "Thank you," without looking up. I thought nothing of it. He came back the next Sunday, and the one after that. By the 4th week, I knew his order before he gave it. By the 6th, he'd looked up from his laptop long enough to ask my name. By the 8th, we'd had a 2-hour conversation about nothing in particular. His failed attempt at learning Portuguese, my grandmother's inexplicable hatred of ceiling fans, the specific misery of Seattle rain in March, and I'd given him my number without quite deciding to. His name was Ethan. He was 27, worked in commercial real estate development, had a younger sister named what I thought sounded like Lou, but was actually spelled Lou, and he laughed at things that were actually funny, instead of at things he thought were supposed to be funny. That last part mattered more than I knew how to explain. We dated for a 1.5 years before he asked me to move in with him. I said yes. I meant it completely. And then, 8 months after that, he was gone. Not dramatically. Not in the way breakups happen in movies, with slammed doors and rain. He sat down across from me, at the kitchen table on a Tuesday evening in October, while I was studying for my pharmacology exam, and he told me he needed to end things. He said it wasn't my fault. He said he wasn't in the right place. He said he cared about me, and he was sorry. All the things people say when they've decided, when it's already over, when the conversation is a formality. I asked him what had changed. He said he wasn't sure he could explain it. I asked him if there was someone else. He said no. I asked him if he was okay. And something passed over his face then, something I'd never been able to name. And he said he was fine. He just needed to go. He was out of the apartment within the week. I finished nursing school. I got my license. I took the job at Seattle Children's because a friend told me the pediatric unit was hard but good, the kind of hard that keeps you from taking things for granted. She was right. I moved into a one-bedroom in Fremont and bought a second-hand couch and a real coffee maker, and I stopped thinking about Ethan Hargrove every single day. Eventually, just most days. Eventually, just sometimes. Eventually, almost never, which is what I told myself and mostly believed. 7 years. And now he was 30 feet down the hall, sitting in a chair beside his father's bed in room 4112. I finished my shift at 7. My replacement? A travel nurse named Sandy, who always brought breakfast burritos from the place on East Lake, took over the station with her usual cheerful efficiency, and I changed out of my scrubs in the locker room and stood at the sink longer than I needed to, looking at my own face. I looked tired. I was tired. I'd been on since 7 the previous morning, which was a stupid double shift I'd agreed to because Marta was at her daughter's wedding in Phoenix, and I genuinely didn't know how to say no to people I liked. I looked fine. That was the other thing. I was 31 years old, and I'd lived a whole life in the time since that kitchen table conversation, and I looked fine, and I was fine. And whatever I'd felt when he said my name the night before was just the particular vertigo of unexpected things, nothing more. I told myself this in the mirror. Then I walked out of the locker room and nearly ran directly into him. He was standing in the corridor outside the family lounge, hands in his coat pockets, looking like he hadn't slept either. There were dark circles under his eyes I hadn't noticed the night before. Or maybe I'd been trying not to notice things. I was hoping to catch you, he said. Visiting hours start at 9, I said. Your father will be here. I wanted to talk to you. Mr. Hargrove. Ethan, he said. Please. I looked at him. The corridor was empty except for us and the distant sound of a cart being wheeled somewhere. The morning light was coming in through the window at the end of the hall, that flat gray Seattle light that never quite commits to anything. I'm off my shift, I said. I'm going home. I know. I'm sorry. He stopped, pressed his lips together, started again. I saw your name on the board last night, the nurse on duty, Callie Nguyen, and I thought maybe it was a coincidence, another person with the same name, but then you were just there. Here, I said. I work here. You work here, he repeated, like that fact contained something he was still trying to process. Pediatric oncology, mostly. I float to cardiac recovery when they're short-staffed. I didn't know why I was telling him this. I crossed my arms over my chest. Your father is doing well. Dr. Whitfield will make rounds by 9:30. If you have questions about his care, she's the right person. Callie. I stopped. I know I don't have any right to ask anything of you, he said quietly. I know that. But would you? Could I buy you a cup of coffee? Just 10 minutes. I want to explain something. The word explain landed in my chest like a stone dropping into still water. 7 years. He wanted to explain something after 7 years. Every reasonable part of me knew the answer. Every trained, composed, professionally detached part of me knew exactly what to say. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do need to get home. The cafeteria on the second floor, I said instead. I'm leaving in 20 minutes regardless. He nodded. I'll be there. The cafeteria at 7 in the morning smells like drip coffee and scrambled eggs and floor cleaner, and it is the least romantic place on earth, which was exactly why I chose it. I got a coffee. He got the same, black, and sat across from me at a table by the windows and looked at his cup for a moment before he spoke. I left because my company was under federal investigation, he said. I looked at him. Not me personally. My business partner, my former business partner, had been running a side operation through our development projects. laundering money through property deals. I found out in September of that year, and I went to the FBI. He paused. It took 3 years to fully resolve. The first year was the worst. There were threats. Against me and against people close to me. The coffee cup was warm in my hands. I held it. I didn't tell you because I genuinely believed that the further you were from me, the safer you were. And I thought, he stopped, exhaled. I thought if I told you the truth, you'd try to stay. And I couldn't let you do that. You could have told me, I said. My voice was quiet and level. You should have told me. Yes, he said. I know that now. I knew it then too, probably. He shook his head. I was 27, and I was scared, and I made a decision I thought was protecting you. You made a decision for me, I said. About my own life, without asking me. He didn't argue. He didn't have a counteroffer for that one. And I respected him enough to notice that he didn't try. My partner went to prison, he said. The company survived, barely. I spent 2 years rebuilding it. And then another 2 after that, not quite understanding why I still felt like I was missing something structural. He looked at me. I'm not saying this I'm not here to ask for anything, Callie. I just always wanted you to know that it wasn't because you did anything wrong. It was never about you not being enough. You were. He stopped himself. You deserved better than disappearing act I pulled. That's all I wanted to say. I sat with that for a moment. Outside the cafeteria windows, the city was waking up. A bus went by. A woman walked a dog in a rain jacket, the ordinary machinery of a Tuesday morning. How's your father? I finally asked. Something shifted in his face. He's scared, I think. He won't admit it. He's never been good at that. Most people aren't. He keeps asking if I called Lou. Your sister? He nodded. She lives in Portland now, has 3 kids. She's driving up this morning. He's going to be okay, I said. I mean that clinically, not just as something to say. Doctor. Whitfield is excellent, and his numbers overnight were stable. He's going to need some lifestyle changes, and he'll probably hate that, but he's going to be okay. Thank you, he said, quietly, like he meant it for more than one thing. I picked up my coffee cup and looked at it. I need you to understand, I said slowly. That I'm not. I don't carry some unresolved thing for you. I have a full life. I have people I love and work I'm proud of, and I'm not sitting somewhere waiting for closure. I know, he said. I wasn't assuming. Good. I'm glad, he said. I'm genuinely glad you built something good. I looked at him across the table. He looked back. And it was the strangest sensation. Like pressing on a bruise you'd forgotten about and finding it mostly healed, tender in some faint peripheral way, but no longer the wound it once had been. I have to go home, I said. I've been up for over 24 hours. Of course. He stood when I did, which was such a specific, old-fashioned gesture that something small caught in my throat. Thank you for the coffee. You paid for it. Thank you for the company, then. I put on my coat and picked up my bag. At the door of the cafeteria, I stopped. Ethan. He looked up. Tell your father the nurses on this floor are rooting for him. We actually mean it when we say that. He smiled. It was the same smile he'd had at the coffee shop that first Sunday, the one that started slowly and meant something. I'll tell him. I walked out into the corridor and pressed the elevator button and stood there while the numbers changed. And when the doors opened and I stepped inside and turned around, he was still standing in the cafeteria doorway, watching. The doors closed. I leaned against the back wall of the elevator and looked up at the ceiling and breathed. I slept for 9 hours. I woke up to 3 texts from my roommate Becca, asking if I wanted Thai food, and 1 voicemail from my mother reminding me about Thanksgiving. And for a few seconds, I just lay there and let the ordinary life of it settle back over me like something familiar and warm. Then I got up and answered the texts and called my mother back and ate leftover soup from the fridge standing at the counter. And I told myself that was that. A closed chapter. A conversation that had needed to happen and now had. Clean. I went back on shift Thursday. His father was in room 412, sitting up in bed, doing a crossword puzzle with the television on low. He was smaller than I'd imagined from his chart. Or maybe it was that hospital gowns have a way of reducing people. He had silver hair and a steady look about him. And when I came in to check his vitals, he watched me with the same careful attention Ethan had. You're Callie, he said. I looked at him. I am. I'm your nurse for the morning shift. My son mentioned you, he said. I took his blood pressure without commenting on this. He said you were kind to him, his father continued. Ethan doesn't use that word much. Kind. He's more of a professional and capable person, my son. Uses that kind of language. So kind meant something. He was worried about you, I said. That tends to bring out honesty in people. His father made a small sound of acknowledgement. He's a good boy, he said. Made some mistakes, but a good boy. I wrapped up his cuff and made my notes. Your numbers look good this morning, Mr. Hargrove. How are feeling? Old, he said simply, but better than Tuesday. Better than Tuesday is a solid benchmark. He smiled at that. The same slow smile, and I felt something pull in my chest that I decided not to examine too closely. I was almost at the door when he said, He's been here every morning since Tuesday. Gets here before the floor wakes up. Sits in that chair. He nodded at the recliner in the corner. He stayed through the whole first night. He loves you, I said. I know, his father said. I just wanted someone else to know too. I didn't see Ethan again until Saturday. I was on break, sitting in the family lounge with a granola bar and a 20-minute window before I needed to be back, when the door opened and he walked in and stopped when he saw me with the exact same expression he'd had that first night, that going, still thing. Sorry, he said. I didn't know anyone was in here. It's a family lounge, I said. You qualify. He almost smiled. Came in and sat down in the chair by the window, a couple feet away, close enough to talk if we wanted to, far enough to not have to. For a minute neither of us said anything. Lou brought the kids, he said finally. My nephews. They're 4 and 6 and completely feral, and my dad laughed harder in the first hour than I've seen him laugh in years. That's good, I said. And I meant it, the genuine, uncomplicated kind of good, without any of the weight underneath. Yeah, he said. It really was. Another pause. He told me he talked to you, Ethan said. He's a good talker. He's been trying to rehabilitate my reputation for 30 years. Don't take it personally. I looked at him. He was looking at his hands. He had the kind of hands that looked like they'd done actual work at some point, which had always surprised me given the industry he was in. Or maybe it didn't, anymore, given everything he'd told me. Can I ask you something? He said. You can ask. He looked up. Are you actually okay? Not, I mean clinically, practically, fully lived life okay. I got that. But, he paused, searched for the words. Do you have someone? Are you happy? It was such a direct question, such an Ethan question. He'd always done that. Circled around something carefully and then asked it point blank when you least expected it. I'm happy, I said, not in a complete uncomplicated way. But I think that's just adulthood. Yeah, he said. I think you're right about that. No, I said to the first part. I don't have someone. Not right now. He nodded. Didn't say anything. You? I asked. I wasn't sure why I asked. Maybe because fair was fair. Maybe because his father's voice was still sitting somewhere in the back of my head. He stayed through the whole first night. No, he said. I haven't been great at that. After everything. He paused. Or maybe before everything too, if I'm honest. The fluorescent light in the family lounge buzzed faintly. Outside the window, it was starting to rain, that thin, constant Seattle rain that doesn't bother announcing itself. I'm not trying to reopen something, he said. I want to be clear about that. I'm here, and you're here, and I thought 7 years ago I was protecting you, and instead you hurt me, I said. Simply without drama. Yes, he said. I did. We sat with that for a moment. I think, I said carefully, that there's a version of things where I understand why you made the choices you made. Not agree with them, but understand them. He looked at me. And I think there's also a version of things where I'm 31 years old, and I work on a floor full of sick kids, and I've learned something about not holding on to things that don't serve you. I looked at my granola bar wrapper, folded it once. I'm not the same 24-year-old who gave you her number in a coffee shop. I know, he said. Neither am I. So what does that mean? He was quiet for a moment. I don't know, he said honestly. I don't know what I'm asking for. I didn't want to be in the same building as you for a week and pretend we're strangers. That felt like the wrong thing, too. Something loosened in my chest, just slightly. Your father gets discharged Monday if everything holds, I said. Assuming it does, I know. After that, you'll probably go back to wherever you are now, Portland mostly. But I'm in Seattle for a few months. We're developing a property in South Lake Union. I looked at him. He looked at me. The rain ticked against the window. The fluorescent light hummed. I have to get back to my floor, I said. Of course. I stood up and picked up my badge lanyard from the table. At the door, I paused. My break on Sunday is at 2, I said, without quite deciding to. If your father's having a good morning, he doesn't need you hovering. You could get a cup of coffee. He went very still. Second floor cafeteria, I said. Worst coffee in Seattle. I remember, he said. I went back to work. I checked on Mr. Hargrove at noon and he was asleep, the crossword folded on the bedside table, the television off for once. I stood in the doorway for a moment and looked at him. This man I'd known for less than a week, who had his son's careful eyes and his son's slow smile, and who had wanted someone to know that Ethan had stayed through the whole first night. I thought about the 24-year-old who had studied pharmacology at a kitchen table while the person she loved sat across from her and prepared to disappear. I thought about the version of that night, where he had told me the truth instead, where I'd had a choice, where we'd been scared together. I thought about everything I had built in the years since. The license, the work, the apartment in Fremont, the life that was mine and full and good enough on its own. I was not that girl waiting at the table anymore. But I was also standing in a doorway, and Sunday was 2 days away. And outside the window, Seattle was raining in that uncommitted way it always did. And I thought, sometimes things end for the wrong reasons. Sometimes the story doesn't get to finish the way it was supposed to. Sometimes you get the chance to find out what the right ending would have been. And sometimes the bravest thing isn't letting go. Sometimes it's choosing to stay curious about what comes next. I closed room 412's door softly and went back down the hall and picked up the next chart, and the floor hummed with its ordinary nighttime sounds. And I thought about Sunday at 2 o'clock and let myself feel, just for a moment, the particular, terrifying thing that comes before hope.